Hello and welcome to the Preparing for Success webinar series. Today's webinar is titled From the Glass Ceiling to the Sticky Floor, Promoting Women's Leadership in Conversation with Alumnus Ruth Atobrah. I'm delighted today to be joined by Commonwealth Alumnus Ruth Atobrah, who will be sharing her leadership experiences with us today. Ruth is a strategy analyst with a background in finance and sustainable development. She began her career as a research analyst at TESA Capital, analysing global markets and providing investment strategies. Now she leads the strategy and execution team at First Atlantic Bank Limited. She holds a master's in leadership for sustainable development from Queen's University in the UK and an MPhil in finance from the University of Ghana. Alongside this role, she also heads the children's unit of PVC Global. She's a certified investment advisor broker-dealer by the Ghana Stock Exchange and the Securities and Exchange Commission. Ruth is dedicated to making a positive impact in the financial sector and beyond. And finally, Ruth also currently serves on the Alumni Advisory Panel for the Commonwealth Scholarship Commission, where she provides personal insight and expertise to contribute to the development of CSC activities, including this pilot series as well. So we're absolutely delighted that she's joining us today. Ruth is a 2013 Commonwealth Shared Scholar from Ghana, and she completed her master's, as mentioned, in Leadership for Sustainable Development at Queen's University, Belfast. Ruth, thank you so much for joining us. We can tell by your bio that you are one busy alumnus, so it's fantastic to have you join us. Is there anything that you want to add to your introduction or to say and to welcome our scholar attendees?
Thank you, Kirsty, for the introduction. I think that's enough. And I'm glad to be here today to share my experience with other Commonwealth scholars. Thank you.
Amazing, thank you so much. So, as mentioned, your bio is not a small piece of paper by any stretch, and you're involved in lots of different things as well. Can you tell us a little bit more, just to get an insight about your role and the types of responsibilities that come with some of these quite significant senior leadership positions?
All right, so yes, I've handled many roles, but currently what I'm doing is serving as the head of strategy and execution at First Atlantic Bank, as you've already said. My role as the strategy and execution leader demands that I develop and implement the company's strategic plan. And what that means is that I have to be on the lookout for opportunities and potentials to make the necessary adjustments to our business objectives. And in doing so, I collaborate with many departments and units within the organization. And together we do monitoring and evaluation of various objectives and ensuring we are making projects. So overall, you can say I act as a resource across the bank. I promote cohesion and understanding of our strategic plans through First Atlantic Bank. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And again, it's really helpful just to understand kind of a bit more about your role and that you're seeking out these opportunities for business objectives and to support that. But actually, to do that role, you're having to access resource across the bank, across the organisation, which is something that very much comes with being a leader, is working across wider remits. With that in mind, was a leadership position something that you always wanted to pursue? Has this been a long-term career goal, or did you accidentally become a leader?
No, no. It wasn't by accident at all. I think the inspiration to lead, maybe from my background and from my home, I witnessed the experience my mother went through, and maybe I would like to share that quickly. And so the inspiration mainly came from my mother growing up. I saw how she influenced a lot of decisions in our home. And that's basically because of her experience she shared with me. At the time she wrote an A-level exam, she had a distinction and had the opportunity to further her education. But she was not able to do so because her father decided that women at the time, I mean, children, girls that were her children at the time would not go to school. It will only be boys. And even though her mother could have afforded, she couldn't have a say because at the time the role of a woman demands that whatever your husband says is the final. And so based on her experience, she decided that she would strive to be an independent woman, leading in terms of economically and financially. She involved herself in a lot of trading activities, in a lot of farming activities, so that we do not go through the same experience that she went through. Thankfully, this culture is changing a bit. But in my time, we nearly also went through that same scenario. But at the time, she was comfortable in terms of economic wise. So even when my father insisted that did not buy fully into the idea that we would further education, she was still able to sponsor us to a point where my father agreed to support her for us to fully finish higher education. And so, based on her experience, I realized that it's important to be influential wherever you find yourself. Because if he had not built herself to be influential, there were certain decisions that would have been made that would not have added any value to us as her children. And so that was where my leadership inspiration were picked up from. And my journey into banking leadership, as you read, right after coming back from the UK in 2014, I got the opportunity to be a research analyst in an investment firm. And my role allowed me to influence almost every investment decision for our clients. And that was because every investment decision, whether it was fixed deposits, treasury bills, or equity, needed to be backed by research. And so at the point, some of my research findings changed some strategic decisions of the company. And so those moments gave me first-hand experience to lead and influence banking and strategic decisions, which I find myself here today.
That is such an incredible kind of sort of background to give, and thank you so much for sharing quite personal experiences for it as well. But it's amazing that your leadership journey sort of started with your mother, and seeing, as you mentioned, kind of the importance of being influential where you can be, and kind of really embracing those opportunities as well. And that's something that you were inspired by, in seeing, even though your mother didn't have the opportunities, that she was economically sort of independent and had that freedom and those abilities to be a leader in that way, and also in influencing kind of your own access to higher education as well, which has then gone on to this incredible career that you've shared. I mean, you've mentioned kind of the cultural sort of difficulties and barriers that women face in accessing not just leadership, but a number of different things, from kind of education to economic independence as well. In terms of looking at the employment landscape and perhaps reflecting on some of your personal experiences, what do you feel are the biggest challenges facing women who are either already in a leadership position or perhaps in seeking leadership positions?
All right. So maybe I will share my experience and relating particularly to the banking sector. In Ghana, we have 23 banks. And if you look at a report that was issued recently by PwC, you realize that when it comes to male-female ratio of total staff, it's almost like 50-50. However, when you progress, female representation tends to decline, and you ask yourself why. For management level, from the report, if they were able to find out management for female, even though management for all the 23 banks were about 245, female was just 66% of that. And even when you move to the board level, it declines even further. And if I should put that in a graphical manner, you will see that if you take just 10 people in management position, only 2.5 will be female representatives. And so once you find yourself in a predominantly male-dominated environment, like the banking industry, the reality of being outnumbered by many male counterparts meant that you will face the need to have to do more than expected of you to be able to prove yourself that indeed you are a leader. And in our setting, the notion is that when you are seen as a leader in the banking industry, then you are deemed to be a tough person because it demands strength for you to be a woman leader in the banking industry. You need to be more assertive, you need to be more confident, and because before you can be chosen out of the many male that you are competing with. So the gender imbalance within our industry means that I find it more challenging to demonstrate my courage and assertiveness. And like I told you before, and this is a culture where previously or even now, men are still regarded as head of families. And so in speaking, you are mindful of what you say in order not to offend the ego of men, which naturally comes with them. So that is one key challenge that you face, that you will need to do more and extra to be able to earn the promotion or the role that you need to be put in, even though you may have all the qualifications and certificates for that role. The other main challenge I will talk about is having to balance your work with family, friends, and other personal responsibilities. And those things create additional pressures on me and other females in this industry. And so sometimes you find it difficult to have dedicated time and energy for career development. There's been times I've thought about having to do my PhD, but the thought of having to combine, if I'm even to do it on a part-time, how am I going to combine this plus work and family? Because I will need to also pay for the tuition and other costs of PhD. So maybe I will need to go for part-time. But how will I be able to combine all of these in addition to that? So those are some of the things that tend to face you a lot as a woman, particularly in an industry where I find myself.
Thank you so much for sharing. None of those are kind of small challenges at all. And it is interesting to hear you talk about kind of the pressures that you feel almost to kind of overperform, to overwork, to try and sort of prove that you kind of can sort of operate at the same way as a male counterpart, even though they're not doing that same level of work as you. It's about kind of the optics or the sort of cultural lens that's being applied to seeing a woman in a leadership position. How do you sort of personally kind of manage that within yourself? Are there things that you sort of any guidance that you could share about how you sort of acknowledge those challenges but manage them?
Yeah, so mainly, yes, you will see the challenges, but there is an inspiration behind, and I've already shared my inspiration already. And one key thing that inspires me most is having a lot of other girls looking at me as a mentor. And so I can say I was the first girl from my family to have attended a university and obtained masters. And you have other people looking up to you to do same. And so in spite of all the challenges, you still push yourself um, and build resistance. And the other key thing is also having the support system. So one key support system have been the people, the male people around me, because they are already there. They have the voice and all of that, and they can help you on the learning curve. The other two has been family. And so even if there are things you needed to have done for your children and other family members, you kind of understand you and give you the leeway to do what is expected of you at the workplace. One thing is that we know nothing is permanent. So in the meantime, try to do your best and make the mark. And once it's time for you to move forward, you know you did what you could in a positive way.
I think that's such an important message, and also is really important, as you've mentioned, the support networks that you look to. You've mentioned kind of family, but also male allyship. In terms of that, we do have some alumni on the call who are already male allies or kind of looking for sort of further guidance on being a male ally. What's been your experience of sort of the type of support you've needed male colleagues to provide that doesn't in any way diminish you as being the leader or seeking leadership, but just gives the encouragement or the support where perhaps they're in a more privileged position to give it?
Yeah, so I've already spoken about how, and forgive me if um, my thoughts are skewed to the banking industry.
No, not at
But
all.
I've already spoken about how my industry is highly dominated by male, and so if you speak to a lot of the female executive here, you realize that they attribute their success to the presence of a supportive male leader who served not only as a mentor but also offered encouragement and provided them with learning experiences. And so immediately I stepped in. That is what I realized, and I also began to pick up from. And so for the male who have joined us here, it's important that some of us look up to you to hold our hands across the journey. And not that we cannot do it, but we think you have the face of the industry, and those who are willing to mentor and sponsor and promote women achievements. You can make a huge difference by doing so. And I believe that when men actively support their female colleague, um, they help to challenge the status quo and break down the barriers that are often hold women back. And so that's what I would share. They should use their position to influence and advocate for fair policies and equal opportunities, and so that we can all grow together and build a better economies.
Thank you so much for sharing that and for that encouragement to those scholars that joined us that are looking for some guidance in that area as well, or just sort of some reassurance that what they might be doing already is appreciated. You mentioned again there kind of mentorship, and you sort of mentioned in one of your earlier answers around kind of there's all these girls looking up to you now, kind of you've become this sort of figure, you were the first, and there are others looking to ensure that the first is also not the last, that there will be generations of women leaders sort of coming. How important is sort of mentorship amongst women leaders? Is this something that you seek out with others who might be in a sort of similar or equivalent leadership position? Or is it something that is actually currently you're sort of giving, sort of cascading down rather than across?
Can you come again, Kirsty, on that, please?
Absolutely, yeah. It was a bit of a messy question, I must admit. I was just asking, in terms of sort of mentorship, do you look to other women leaders for their advice in similar situations, or is there perhaps not that existing network and it's more looking to future women leaders and helping them?
Yes, definitely. Yes, you have women who are ready to support you. But then there is the saying where people say women are also their own enemies, which I tend not to agree to that. You find ourselves in this culture that women tend not to be assertive and confident. And so when you as the woman stand up to be so and to be at parallel with men, kind of in quotes, then other women see you to be an outlier. So they will rather sometimes not come to you for guidance, but rather to their male counterparts. But then you find that when you get close to women who are willing and are ready to be mentored by other women, it becomes smoother than even men because they understand your issues better. They know how you are juggling between family and work, and so they are able to relate with you more. When in terms of our biological mate, they understand that better. They understand our mood swings better. They understand when you are pregnant and you need to go on maternity leave, you go for antenatal and all of that. They are able to help you on how to go about that rather than men. And so it becomes more helpful if you in quote humble yourself to be close to a woman in leadership than men. But like I told you, there's a barrier in the conception of a woman who is a leader, especially in my space. And so you will not find a lot of people coming close to you, but they will rather go close to their male counterpart than male in leadership position than men. And maybe probably is also a form of competition, indirect competition, which I cannot be. I don't have facts to support. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that point. And I think it's true to acknowledge there are not a lot of roles at the top. There is competition there, but we need to be supporting each other to get to that competition, which you've rightly said. And you can look to your male allies, but actually, women helping women is really important in that because there are certain things that are particularly personal that are understood better from another woman's kind of own experiences or understandings around those issues as well. So you've kind of rightly again mentioned another sort of circle of support that you need to look to as well. I know when we spoke earlier in sort of preparing for today, we talked a little bit, we always challenged a little bit the idea of who is a leader. And I think you've talked a little bit already in sort of seeing the inspiration from your mother that a leader is somebody that is not necessarily in the top position of an organization. A leader can be anybody in any position. And I wonder if you can just talk to me a little bit about, I guess, kind of acknowledging that and feeling empowered that you can be a woman leader at any role and just sort of how to acknowledge and celebrate that.
Yes. Yes. So sometimes people think that if you are on top there, that is when you are seen as a leader. But one thing we must all realize is that leadership is not about the position you hold or how the role has been defined. What I see as a leader is the impact you make, okay, the value you are adding to whatever you've been asked to do. Yes, you may not be the one heading the department. You may not be the one who is championing the cause, but wherever you find yourself, you can be a leader. You can be a leader by influencing the thoughts and the direction of the company through your attitude and through how you go about the things you've been tasked to do. You can be a leader by setting an example of being diligent in whatever you are asked to do. So really, it's not about the role you are handling, but about the value you are adding to whatever thing you've been asked to do. And through that, you can influence a lot of the decisions within whichever area you find yourself.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And absolutely, we can all make contributions that support a bigger goal, a wider goal, that they might not be direct, but they can be indirect. And as you've rightly mentioned, leadership qualities can be found in everybody at every position. And we just need to acknowledge that and to embrace those opportunities as well, and to sort of see that personal and professional development. Some of our scholar
And maybe, Kirsty, I want to add to this, to such an example that I shared with you earlier. So, for instance, you may not be the boss, but the bosses rely on their subordinates to write reports and speeches and all of that. And that could be another way of influencing directions and decisions of the company, because it is your thoughts that you put on paper for your bosses to accept or otherwise. And so those are the areas, if you dedicate yourself to whatever you do, we rely on subordinates to do most of the things we do. And so those things can be influenced even from the person who is a clerical person to the top.
Absolutely, that's such a great example to share. And I'm sure for many, it's really encouraging to know that somebody at your kind of senior leadership position recognizes that it's the people around you that also help make the work that you do successful, and that you yourself kind of recognize that as a leader. Some of the scholars who have joined us this afternoon might be master scholars who are looking to soon depart the UK and return home. Some of them might be re-entering workplaces where perhaps they've had negative experiences as women, perhaps in career progression or sort of attitudes. We talked a little bit about kind of the sort of cultural shift. What advice or encouragement would you give to them to perhaps sort of prepare for sort of re-entering those workplaces, or perhaps kind of challenging some of that previous thinking or behaviour that they might have received?
All right. Welcome home if you come in. So, first of all, I want to say that if you are entering into an industry like mine, or entering into a situation as Kirsty has already mentioned, one thing you need to be proud of is to be proud of your resilience. You've done it before, and the decision to come back indicates that you are a tough person, and you need to be proud of your resilience and strength in making this decision. Remember that you have every right to be there, and that your skills and knowledge and perspectives are also very valuable. It's important to set a clear boundaries and know your worth. When it comes to speaking, don't be afraid to speak up. Like I said, yes, in our environment, we are brought up and nurtured not to speak up as women. But times have changed and it's changing. And so this is the opportunity now for you to speak up if something doesn't feel right. And seek out allies, as we have already mentioned. There are very good men and women in every sector who are ready to support us women to move to the top, and use that to build a support network of police who will stand by you and uplift you, as already said. And most importantly, what you need to do is to trust yourself and your abilities and your capabilities. That's yes, if like we say every day, if a man has done it, I can also do it. You have the capacity to do it also. Your past experiences should not make you feel bad. It has rather made you stronger and more aware of what you need to do, and you have been equipped to handle every challenges with confidence and grace. And so keep focusing on the goal and believe in your capabilities, and know that you have the power to create positive experiences this time around as you come home.
Some great words of advice there, and particularly being proud of your resilience. I think that's a wonderful thing to kind of be sharing with everybody, and just encouraging to sort of take those steps. They don't have to be big steps, but they can be small steps, and just being really confident in yourself and being really proud of everything that you've done already, and that you can challenge things and you can change things as well, and particularly if you have that support network ready to help you get there. In terms of sort of thinking a little bit about your own leadership journey, if you could do it all again, is there anything that you would change looking back?
Okay. What will I change going back? Yes, I think the first thing I'll probably do, if I should do it all again, is I'll probably focus more on building a strong support network. I think we've said it over and over again, but I will do it early than I did. I think I did that a bit late. But if I was going back, I would do that as early as I could. When I returned from the UK, I hadn't had industry experience before, so I didn't have people I could relate to in terms of people with industry experience. And what I feel to do is to be active in joining webinars such as this, and building. I don't know if this existed then, but I didn't have the opportunity to have such education and be part of such conversations. And so I struggled a bit when I entered. Before I learned I needed the support network that I needed. And so if I was to go back, those were the first things I would do, by building myself strong, connecting with other Commonwealth scholars who are already in the system and industry, and also probably learning more about what it is to be a female in my industry, working as a female worker in my industry. I've learned that having mentors and allies who believe in you can provide guidance, and that makes a big difference when you are in a leadership position. The other thing to maybe for myself is um, I'll be quicker to trust my instincts and not second guess myself as much. At times, I held back, worrying about being too bold or too different, and that's all because of my background. And so, if I could go back, I'll remind myself to embrace my uniqueness sooner than I did, and to step up into leadership role with more confidence from the start. Thank you, Kirsty.
Thank you for sharing that. I think there's a lot to learn actually from just what you've said about reflecting on your own journey and about doing the research, embracing your uniqueness, not second guessing yourself, trusting your own instincts because you are perfectly qualified and capable. You don't need to check them. You just need to, again, as you've mentioned, be bold and be really brave. And also your advice there to kind of get your network ready to support you as well. And I think that's such a brilliant thing to be sharing, particularly for our scholars who are looking to return home as well. Um, we're going to go to the Q&A very soon. So please do, if you are on the call, please do drop a question if you have one into the chat box, or even just a comment as well. You're equally welcome to message me separately if it's not something that you want to share in the main chat box for the event. But I guess to sort of wrap up the formal discussion, Ruth, any final words of advice for our aspiring future leaders and also allies?
Yeah. Okay. So, my advice, yes, first of all, to future leaders, my advice is as simple as it can be. From my experience, one thing I have learned is that you need to lead with empathy and integrity. You have to have the genuineness to help others also come up to where you are, and understand that you do not know it all. Um, you learn from each other, and so it's not about the power to control, because once you control, you will lose the opportunity of learning from your subordinates and other colleagues who may be at the same level with you. And so, from my previous um, um, advice, I've said that it's all about making impact. So, what value are you adding? What value are you bringing? Whether it is value to the organization or it is value to other colleagues when they leave, what are they taking with them about you? And so, yes, be open to learning, embrace all diversity, especially to our male counterparts, and create spaces where everyone feels valued. And to our male allies, I've said earlier, use your voice and influence to support us and challenge the status quo. I know there's a lot being done in terms of international bodies, NGOs, and it being at country and governmental levels. But yes, we need you. Once these policies are there, we need you to push these policies. And remember that great leaders lift others as they rise. And
Mm.
so be kind to us and always strive to make a difference by carrying and pushing us along. Thank you, Kirsty.
No, thank you. Some great advice there for those on the call. So we've had a question come in from one of our attendees. I've also had a private question as well, but we'll go for the one in the main chat box, which everyone should be able to see. So one of our scholars is asking, is being assertive valuable for women in leadership, and how can one effectively use it?
Yes, that's one thing I mentioned earlier. That's yes, sorry, I'm being skewed to my industry, but for banking industry, once you are seen as a female leader, you are perceived as a tough person. And being a tough person primarily means that you are assertive, you are confident, and you have the courage to do what you have to do. And I've told you that in my industry, because it's male dominated, you need to prove yourself beyond what male counterparts can do, before you are probably recognized and given the role you need to be on. And so, yes, it's very important. I don't know about other industries much, but I guess assertiveness and confidence is significant and important at all levels, whether at home, wherever you find yourself. Without assertiveness, you will not be seen. So that's very important. But the way to go about it is how you will not be perceived as being disrespectful, in particular to our culture. Because at times, confidence can easily be misinterpreted to be disrespectful. And so that is the balance you need to find. Now, how do I become assertive? How do I speak my mind such that I will not be misconstrued for this, or others do not see me as that? That is the balance you need to find. So sometimes it may not work if you put it in writing, because then people are not able to read your emotions through the writing. So you may want to do it on one-on-one basis. You'll be saying what needs to be said, all right, with a smile, and that could show not being disrespectful. And in writing, you may not be able to share a joke at the end of what you want to put across or before you put it across. But when you are one on one, you'll be able to share a joke, and that could light up whatever tension needed to be in whatever you want to put across. So see how you are carrying different kinds of emotions, different kinds of communication, and then you can be assertive as you can. And the other thing is that once you start, don't stop, because once you start, then people will know that this is how you are, this is your personality. But if it comes across one and off, then the one off will be misinterpreted as you not, I mean, being respectful, because this is not you. You are just doing this to maybe rub other people's faces or other things. So that's the advice I'll give on that.
Thank you so much. And I hope that answers the question. It definitely is important to sort of note there about the balance that you need to strike, and that it's a muscle that you need to keep exercising. It's a skill that you need to keep developing. So absolutely, once you start doing it, just keep going and find different ways of being assertive and tempering the language or deciding how you communicate. I think that's a really great point to make. We haven't had any other questions come into the main chat box. I'm going to go to the question that I received privately whilst the chat was going on. You've mentioned earlier about being unique. There's a uniqueness to being a woman as a leader, but also a woman in the workplace. What personally for you, is there an example you can share where you feel kind of as a leader, being a woman has been actually a really important thing that perhaps other colleagues wouldn't have been able to do, but it's your unique perspective that's really sort of solved a problem or raised something?
Because if I get your question, you mean what I have really done? Is that what you're asking?
What is the unique thing that you as a woman leader bring?
That I have brought on board.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. So, well, maybe not at my workplace, but one thing I have done that I am proud of as a leader is that I have been able to set up an NGO with some other women um, in other industries. What we are doing is that we support other girls in high school and tertiary education. And we are using our story to motivate such girls that they can break the barriers. And so we are mentoring them both psychologically, physically, spiritually, whatever it is, to motivate them to be able to also break some of the barriers that we were able to do. And so once they hear our life stories, they are motivated to know that they are not the only ones going through what they are going through, and so they can also do as we have done. So if there is anything that I am very proud about, that is one thing I am proud about. The other thing is also at my workplace. My department also handles the policies of our institutions for adoption. And so once I resumed this position, we were given the opportunity to review our sexual harassment policy, which gave me the opportunity to look at what other institutions that are doing so well are doing. And so I was able to suggest some of these policies, and thankfully, we have received approval for this policy. And so that's also one thing I am very proud of.
Thank you so much for sharing those examples. I think they really illustrate the point about kind of what you are uniquely bringing, where in all the places in which you are a leader or working with other leaders as well. Thank you so much. That brings us to the end of the Q&A. We haven't had any more questions come in. And so with that, that brings us to the end of today's webinar. And a huge thanks to our speaker, to you, Ruth, for joining us and for sharing everything. I think we've all learned a lot more about what it takes to be a leader and the particular qualities and opportunities that come with being a woman leader, as well as perhaps the challenges. I think we all sort of learned a little bit more about those in detail from your experience. I hope everyone on the call actually feels a lot more prepared for these challenges if they were things that you were concerned about. And also, if there are things that you have experienced that you feel a little bit more empowered about how you might approach or navigate the challenges if you do come across them again, just taking forward Ruth's advice and her experiences. Before we kind of end the formal webinar and the recording, Ruth, are there any final words from you?
My final words, I think it's just to reiterate the point that we need to, as women, we need to build our resilience, and we need to build that toughness, and know that we are built to navigate through every challenge that we find ourselves. And so we should not allow whatever is being served as a barrier, whether because of wherever we are coming from, has determined women role and assigned women to be. And so let's do this together. And I know that one of these days we will be there 50-50. As we are down here, we will be up there 50-50 as well, with the support of our men who are ready to speak for us and hold our hands across the curb. Thank you.
Thank you. And that is a fantastic note to end today's webinar on.